This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com.
Hey, welcome to the Digital Desperados podcast featuring Dark Tales from the Web with Patrick McMurphy. He's joined by Brad Hawkins, founder and CEO of SaferNet, which brings us this podcast on a bi-weekly basis, and I'm Jim Brangenberg, just sitting here as your ring leader. I guess no ring guide? I don't know. I'm just here for the fun. You know, cyber criminals are trying to get into your computer all the time, so you need to protect your computer all the time, which is why you need SaferNet. It's got a VPN, internet controls, virus protection, and 84 web filters for a focused online experience. Your safety is SaferNet's priority. Get secured now. SaferNet.com. That's SaferNet.com. And no, it's not expensive. It's reasonable and powerful. SaferNet.com. All right, Patrick, we've had love and intrigue and murders by drone. We've had a mistaken vacation that caused somebody to go to prison. Who do we have today? Which dark tale are you telling us about today?
Well, today's a little bit more lighthearted, and it's a warning on how not to get accidentally arrested at your computer. But today we're going to be talking about Samy Kamkar. He's a white hat hacker who shines a light on the criminal underworld. So Samy is born on December 10th, 1985 in the United States. So we don't have a lot of US digital desperados here, but this is one of them. Like a lot of these guys, very strong interest in computers and hacking from a young age. Not so much the hacking yet, though. He's really this genius programmer as a teenager. He drops out of high school at 16 to found his own software company. This company called Finality, which are a VOP company. So, I mean, this guy's a genius from the start, in my opinion.
I remember that company.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a 16-year-old kid, like, you know. But he has this obviously incredibly early career in tech, and he gets great knowledge of things like networks, software, systems vulnerabilities, and that's where okay, hacking's kind of interesting. So he kind of looks more into hacking. And so now, 2005, MySpace was the big thing. You guys probably remember it, but it was huge. You know, basically, Facebook.
Was that an old people hit? You guys might remember that. Patrick's saying he doesn't remember, but
I'm sorry.
Brad, you and I might remember it.
I'm sorry.
You're not sorry. Don't even pretend to be sorry.
It's like the classic rock of social media. You know, I wasn't allowed.
Oh, wow! Nice recovery. MySpace, the classic rock of social media. There you go. Okay, all right. So back to 2005, where Brad and I remember MySpace.
But Samy kind of accidentally gets international fame for creating something, a worm called a Samy worm. And so he exploits a vulnerability in MySpace code to launch what's called a XSS attack, or cross-site scripting. And now to explain those terms, because there's a lot of jargon in there. So cross-site scripting, I'll keep it short, but it's basically looking for vulnerabilities in a website's code where you can inject malicious code in yourself, so you can alter the behavior of a website. And a worm is kind of like a very fast spreading, self-replicating virus that don't by themselves, like individually, do a lot of damage, but because so many can replicate, they can just clog up an entire system. And so it's kind of funny how the Samy worm works. He uses, he basically, because MySpace, you guys, if you think back on it, it was, you could actually...
if you can remember back that far... Wait a minute. Hey,
back in my day on MySpace.
Could you speak up a little louder for us? That'd be better. Wow.
You could enter your own JavaScript, and this is what led to the Samy worm. But that actually is the reason. So on MySpace, you could enter your own JavaScript, which was very daring at the time, because it opens the door to people like Samy. So this is why, if you look at pictures of people's MySpace profiles that were very fancy looking, it's because they had some level of web development. So you could kind of make your page prettier. And so what would happen is that this worm spread rapidly to people's profiles. It would add Samy as a friend and then just post a message saying, but most of all, Samy is my hero. That's all it did. However, within 24 hours, it hit 1 million MySpace users, right, which is a lot. And it became actually the fastest spreading worm of its time, and it forced MySpace to shut down temporarily. And all this guy was just to kind of say, like, Samy is my hero, and it just talking about himself. So, he didn't mean to cause harm, but he actually, accidentally violated the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And he was arrested by the authorities and charged with felonies related to hacking.
That's
right?
because George Bush had a MySpace account back in 2005.
There you go.
Actually, it was probably his daughter's. I bet it was his daughter. Why else would the Secret Service get involved in 2005? I bet it was George Bush's daughter's.
No, and I mean, yeah, you're completely right, because his home gets raided by the U.S. Secret Service and Electronics Crimes Task Force, and they were only expanded because of the Patriot Act. So it's definitely related to that. It's tied to that. So there was a plea.
It's interesting because this was just a large ego play. He just wanted to be known. Probably wanted to prove to his friends he knew what he was doing, and loved the fact that a million people are saying that they see him as a hero. So it's a large ego play that put him into jail.
He used his first name too. That might have been a bad idea. It's important. It's important to recognize that somebody is always watching when you're on the internet. How else would they know? They're also listening, by the way. How else would they know what to advertise on the side of your screen, or to pop up, or to put into your scroll when you're scrolling videos? Stay safe while working online with SaferNet. Our easy-to-use cybersecurity app keeps businesses protected with VPN, internet controls, virus protection, 84 web filters. Get secured now. SaferNet.com. That's SaferNet.com. All right, so Samy gets cocky, and he gets visited by the U.S. Secret Service because he hacks the Bush daughter's MySpace accounts.
Exactly.
That's one visit nobody wants to have. So that's
Now, there was a plea bargain, so Samy actually doesn't end up serving prison time. However, he has to pay a fine of $20,000. There's 3 years of probation. He's working 720 hours of community service. And of course, he pleaded guilty to computer hacking. But there was also a part of the agreement on his release that he was only allowed access to a single computer that wasn't connected to any network. That would drive someone like me or Samy absolutely insane. I would prefer to be in prison myself. So he just cannot access the internet at all. But Samy realizes, okay, I really like hacking. However, I do not like getting arrested, etc. So he makes a transition into white hat hacking, aka ethical hacking, as in you work for a company, you work for the country, things like that. He's focused on finding vulnerabilities in systems and trying to raise awareness of cybersecurity and cybersecurity threats. So I'm going to run through some of what he's discovered, and it's kind of shocking if a lot of this is now known today and talked about. Very little people know it was Samy that discovered most of this. So 2008, he discovers vulnerabilities in RFID technology. So that's used for identification cards and credit cards. And he basically reveals how easily these, if you have these cards with these chips on them, how someone can just pass by them and steal the data on them. And that's why you might even see advertised today, these metallic wallets that stops these people passing by. They can basically pickpocket you without touching you. So 2010, he creates something called EverCookie. This is this JavaScript-based tool, and it's basically designed to demonstrate the persistence of web tracking mechanisms. So if you go to a website and they're following you, they do not stop following you. So EverCookie was designed to be extremely, extremely difficult to delete. And again, he was trying to demonstrate this. Now, while this was a demonstration, and this is another case of Samy, you shouldn't have done this or released it in the public. A couple of years later, Edward Snowden revealed that NSA had been using EverCookie to track basically anonymous users online. So he was just trying to show something, and the NSA was like, this is cool, let's have that. So be a little more careful, 2010, kind of 2011, and this was a huge one. And I think I had this conversation with people every other month, but he basically, first guy to uncover that iPhones, Android, and at the time Windows phones were secretly collecting and storing users' location data, even when location services were disabled. There was a lot of public outcry around this. There was congressional hearings. There was class action lawsuits against big tech companies. I mean, it does sound like old news, but no one knew that at the time. They would say, oh, if you turn off location services, Google can't track you. No, they were tracking you all the time. It was just to make you feel that you were safe. You weren't. But it was a great find. He kind of then shifted.
And and they're still doing it today. I know if you've got a cell phone, they know where you're at. Even if you have location services off, they know where you're at. They know where you pinged the last tower. They know. Brad, can SaferNet help us there? I mean, if I got SaferNet on my phone, can I keep people from watching me on my phone?
SaferNet does a lot of things. That's not something we've specifically identified as a priority point. We're designing to keep people's data safe. We want to make sure that people can't get tripped up by a lot of these viruses, et cetera. What happens is that these are specific apps. So, for example, Google in their maps. If you allow access to the map, you're allowing access to the whole map, not just part of the map. And so if you don't allow access to the map, you can protect yourself. And so it's a little bit of a squirrely thing, but we don't have the power to control Google yet.
So SaferNet is not as big as Google yet, but they can keep you from clicking. Well, they can't keep you from clicking on the wrong links or they can't keep you from doing the stupid thing like clicking where you shouldn't click, but they can keep that link from taking you places you shouldn't go. And that's the beautiful thing about SaferNet. Go online to safernet.com. Get your whole company secured today. It's reasonably priced and it's powerful. Safernet.com. All right, so Samy uncovers that iPhones, Androids, and Windows phones are secretly collecting data, which today, that's just so laughable. Of course they are. And they're selling it to all kinds of people.
So at this point, Samy kind of shifts his focus more into kind of vehicle security and then Internet of Things as in IoT security. And just to, if you're not familiar with the term, an IoT device is basically any device that's connected to the internet that isn't necessarily a computer or phone. And so, for example, the Ring doorbell that you can view on your phone, that's an IoT device. And in fact, if you guys remember a couple of episodes ago, we talked about the Mirai botnet, and that was one of the largest botnets that was made up of just IoT devices. Because everyone has IoT devices, none of them are secure. Get rid of, throw them out the window, right? I want to say they're awful IoT devices. And so one of the first things he develops is Skyjack, and so it's an open source tool that enable a drone, as in I don't mean drone strike drone. I'm talking about the ones that people fly around city. That one of them could basically hack and take control of nearby drones. So you can basically thieve drones with your drone, which is incredible. He then 2015 he released OwnStar, and so this is a device that exploited flaws in General Motors' remote link app. And so what you would do with this is that he demonstrated how a hacker could remotely unlock, locate, and start a GM vehicle, which is like a massive vulnerability. So a hacker could walk up with his phone and steal your car, effectively. And so the guys in GM start sweating, and so they get to work on fixing their security at this point.
That's major.
Another reason why to buy a Honda, I guess. Okay.
The same year, Samy creates something called MagSpoof, and so it's how to emulate magnetic stripe cards, the magnetic stripe cards. I mean, things like credit cards on point of sale systems that, if you just run your card through one of these POS machines, that it could just immediately be emulated. Past that, he goes on to KeySweeper. So it's an interesting one. It looks like a regular USB charger, but it can wirelessly record keystrokes from nearby devices. So, for example, Samy has KeySweeper. He goes into a cafe. There's a lot of people typing in a cafe. He plugs in KeySweeper. He knows what everyone else around him is typing. So that's including, passwords, banking information, everything. 2016, he creates a very similar version, but it's kind of takes a bit of social engineering to work. It's called Poison Tap. It's this, again, it's a little ISP or USB device that you plug into someone's port, and it can get all your internet traffic, how to exploit that network and things. So again, it'd be a system if, they're in a cafe, or especially nowadays, a lot of remote work hubs, someone gets up, use the bathroom, Samy just plugs in this thing for a couple of seconds, takes it back out, and then has all their information, how to get into their system. And kind of today, from all that, he has a lot more inventions. This guy is just a genius with creation. But he's become this incredibly prominent figure in the cybersecurity community. He's always speaking at things like DEF CON, these black hat events, the white hat events. So he's kind of universally loved by both legal and illegal characters on the sides of the coin. But yeah, he's done massive influence on the automotive industry. Obviously, I don't think GM like him, but they had to act. The IoT device manufacturers. But his life is I would never say that Samy was a black hat hacker. He was more a gray hat, but he realized immediately when he's like, okay, what I do can get seriously out of hand with that Samy worm. He's like, okay, we gotta make this ethical, and we have to show the world that all these big companies, they're either spying on you or their systems are very insecure. And these discoveries, he's closed a lot of huge security gaps in the industry as we know it. So yeah, to me, Samy Kamkar, he's one of the good guys out there, and he's it's worth following him. It's worth looking out his talks and things, because he's definitely, you're going to feel like you're going to be hacked any second when you're listening to him, because he makes it real.
But that's
the truth is you are going to be hacked not every second. That's what happens is over 90% of hacks are unnoticed. Nobody knows. And so the key that has to be done is you have to apply your cybersecurity. You have to. You can't just sit around thinking, oh, well, nobody wants to hack me. You look at, the next time you go into a Starbucks and you think you want to return your email or go and, God forbid, go in and access your bank accounts, and you don't have proper cybersecurity, you think, well, I'm not important enough. Nobody cares about what I'm doing. But you think about all the tools out there that are available, and these are the ones that Samy, who's a white hacker, has identified. What about all the black hats that are not public?
Yeah, exactly.
And how many of those are out there that, there's just as smart people that are operating under the black hat world than there are with this guy. So it's really amazing to me how many people believe that they're not important enough to be hacked against. So it just shocks me.
So, but if I've got SaferNet on my devices and I go into that internet cafe today and go access my bank account, will I be okay?
Yeah, you're operating in your safe cybersecurity tube that allows you to access the internet, and you're not being touched, you're not being accessed. And that's what is so important that people understand, is that anytime you're involved with the internet, you're wide open to anybody like this guy who is operating in the black hat world that is going to snag your information one way or another.
And I will add to that, SafeNet is not yet available for General Motors, but if anyone in the automotive industry wants to approach SafeNet about some kind of deal, it can be arranged. We can protect your cars too, apparently.
You just disconnect the OnStar button on your car too. That might work. All right, you heard it here. The internet and everything digital, including your automobile, can have a dark side with many dark players. That's why you need SaferNet by your side. With its VPN, antivirus, 84 website filters, so much more. It's console where you can see everything that's going on with all your devices all at one time. We want to thank SaferNet for supporting our efforts to bring the Digital Desperados podcast to your ears and give these hackers the exposure that they need. And for your own security and the security of those you work with every day, check out SaferNet online at safernet.com. Till the next time, click only on the attachments, the links, the pictures, and the websites that you trust from those you trust. And don't go anywhere else and delete the rest of the things that come from other people, or you may become the next victim of a digital desperado.
This episode of the Digital Desperados podcast is brought to you by SaferNet VPN, found online at safernet.com.
If it's easy to use, you'll use it. What if you had one place to monitor all the internet activity of everyone in your family? Attention, I Work for Him listeners. Safeguard your business and family with SaferNet VPN. We deliver top-notch cybersecurity with a user-friendly approach. Protect sensitive data with a virtual private network and shield loved ones from harmful content with 84 internet filters. Choose SaferNet VPN for peace of mind. Get secured now. Sign up with safernet.com. That's safernet.com.